Hi everyone, Scott here, back on the Movie Reviewers 100, a collaboration channel here on YouTube and Facebook. We review movies based on a particular theme, a different theme every week. And this week our theme is the actress Amanda Seyfried, who was on a couple of soap operas, and then she managed to score one of the lead parts in Mean Girls alongside Rachel McAdams and Lindsay Lohan, and since gone on to become a popular person in her own right. She was just in A Million Ways to Die in the West, which is a Seth MacFarlane Western comedy, and she's actually going to be replacing Mila Kunis in the next Ted movie, so good on her for that. That'll probably be a big hit. Now, I've seen a bunch of her movies over the years, because, how do I put this? You remember in True Romance, Christian Slater has a line about a hypothetical, beautiful, curvy blonde with an ass that tastes like French vanilla ice cream? Well, when I first saw Amanda Seyfried, I went, oh my god, she's real! She is so exciting to look at. She's just very, very delectable. Huge blue eyes, just very pretty, you know, very curvy. Yeah, I just like looking at her. I'm a creep that way. I'm a total scumbag. But I do value her as an actress some of the time. There's been a lot of movies that she's made in which she's played one of the main characters. They were terrible. And there's movies in which she doesn't play the main character. She plays a supporting character that's actually really good. That's sort of been the trend. The one exception to this, for me, is Jennifer's Body, which Ray reviewed a little earlier in the week, so you should check his video out if you haven't already. By the way, kudos to Ray. He had an operation for hernia, and yet he still managed to make a video. Awesome job, Ray. That's great. Please check out his video if you haven't so far. He put some effort into it. Anyway, so I had a lot of films to choose from. Movies in which she played the lead character that I didn't like that much, such as Red Riding Hood and In Time, and she was in Les Miserables. I didn't like that one that much either. She was in this thriller called Gone, which was okay, but really not that great. She was in Mamma Mia, which was a big hit, but I really am not big on that movie either. Yeah, but she's been in some good films in smaller parts, and the one that I really wanted to talk about was Alpha Dog. Alpha Dog, I think, is probably the best movie that she's been in, and her role in that is not tiny, but it's not one of the main characters either. It's directed by Nick Cassavettes, who did The Notebook, and a couple of movies with Cameron Diaz, My Sister's Keeper, and the one that just came out earlier this year, The Other Woman. Yeah, he's directed all those. This one is based on a true story about this group of wannabe white kids who are gangsters. White kids who are wannabe gangsters in California around 1999. The main character is Emile Hirsch, who was the main character in Into the Wild, the Sean Penn movie. And he's basically the guy in charge. His father is connected to organized crime. His father's played by Bruce Willis. But he's sort of like in charge of his own little sort of gang neighborhood. He's got guys like Justin Timberlake and Shawn Hatosy working for him and doing his bidding, and he's sort of the lord of the area, kind of. But of course, he's still just a kid, really. You know, I mean, he's a pretty young guy. I don't know if he's a teenager still, but still pretty young. And so he probably can't fully grasp, you know, the trouble that he could get himself into, which is what he does in this film. Excuse me. One of the other main characters is played by Ben Foster, who was Russell Crowe's right-hand man in 3:10 to Yuma. And he's kind of small-time as well. He works for him on occasion, does distribution, but he owes him a lot of money, and he hasn't been able to pay him back, despite whatever efforts he's putting forth. And so he and Emile Hirsch kind of get into it. They threaten each other, they fight each other, so I'm like, oh man, this is war, it's bleeping war, man. You're a dead man, blah, blah, this and that. And he does crazy stuff like break into his house, you know, and trash the place and take a dump on his carpet and things like that. So Emile Hirsch is like, oh, it's on now, it's really on. You know, we're going to find this guy, we're really going to mess him up. So he and a couple of guys from his crew, they get in a van and they start driving around looking for him, but they happen to spot his little brother instead. His little brother is named Zach, and he's played by Anton Yelchin, who of course now plays Chekhov in the new Star Trek movies. I don't know how old he was when he made the movie, but the character is basically 15 years old. So they grab him, they shove him in this van, and they tie him up and they basically take him as a hostage, as a kidnap victim. But after a while, they don't bother tying him up and taping his mouth shut because the kid kind of likes hanging out with them. He gets to hang out and drink and smoke weed and play video games and party with the girls they're hanging out with and stuff like that. He's really having a good time. He's almost like he's on vacation. And some of the girls who find out that the fact that he got abducted actually think it's kind of hot that he's been taken by these guys, but now he's just kind of hanging out as one of the friends and everything like that. Amanda Seyfried plays one of these girls, just kind of hanging out, and she and Amber Heard treat the kid to a three-way in the hotel pool late in the picture. Now, again, like I said, this is based on a true story, and the story ends badly for pretty much everybody involved. No one has a happy ending in this story. But for a while, the movie is really, really funny, you know. They're all hanging out, you know, and you know how, like, kids who really want to act tough is always, like, ripping on each other and getting into fights and calling each other homo and stuff like that, you know. But mostly it's just guys sitting around bullshitting and just having a good time, you know, partying it up, listening to music, you know, going. There's a great scene where I think it's Emile Hirsch is basically like hanging out with some people. They're hanging out basically at this house that has a pool, and he walks up to this guy that's talking to this girl and he just shoves the guy in the pool, and then he pours the girl who's still standing there a drink, and then he shoves her in the pool as well. There's a bunch of great lines of dialogue in this movie. My favorite one is when Justin Timberlake is saying goodbye to a bunch of girls that are taken off. He says, "Drive fast with your eyes closed," instead of course, "drive safe." And there's a scene where a couple guys, they visit a third guy at his house, and the third guy basically opens up his doors. He's like, "What's up, buddy?" And they're like, "What's up, buddy? Buddy, 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 buddy." It's just, you get the idea this is something that they do a lot of. There's a whole bunch of recognizable actors who I really wasn't familiar with when the film came out. I didn't really know who Ben Foster was. I didn't know who Anton Yelchin was, I don't think. Vincent Kartheiser, I'd seen him in a couple things, but this was before he did Mad Men. Lucas Haas has a small role. Chris Marquette was one of the kids in The Girl Next Door, the comedy The Girl Next Door, which Emile Hirsch also was the main character of. Amber Heard, I'd never seen her in anything. Dominique Swain, I knew who she was because she was playing teenagers 10 years earlier in Face Off and was still apparently playing teenagers. And I think it's probably also the first movie I saw Olivia Wilde in. She plays Emile Hirsch's girlfriend. Big cast, huge cast of characters. Probably a lot more than the average screenwriter or studio person would think would be necessary. Normally when you get a true story like that, they like reduce the number of essential characters, they combine characters, they simplify things. But, you know, Nick Cassavettes, who also wrote the script and was the director, I don't think really did that. And he was very and he's very specific about pointing out all these people are really real. All these individual people who just come in briefly and are gone are essential to telling the story because they were all witnesses in the case. Whenever somebody new comes on screen, there's a little title card that has the person's name and, you know, that they're a witness in the case. It's like the people who watched the kid get snatched initially and shoved in the van, witness 1 and 2. Then they brought him to this guy's apartment and he's there with 2 other girls, they're witnesses 3, 4, and 5. And they identify each of these people, almost all of them by name. So there isn't a lot of fudging of the facts in this thing, which is cool. You know, it's like Zodiac. Zodiac, he just, you know, that's a Fincher movie with Mark Ruffalo. He didn't fudge a lot of facts in there, I think, was very, very intent on telling, you know, the story as it was experienced by these people. And it's a really good movie, really, really good movie. I enjoy it quite a lot. And it turns grim, of course. Sharon Stone is the mother of the kid that got snatched, and she has, you know, she's like terrified of what's going to happen to this kid. There's a lot of fairly scary scenes in this, especially towards the end. And it's really weird because most of the film is just like this big party. It's like everyone's just having a great time, having a lot of laughs. And there's a great scene late in the picture. It's like the night before they said, okay, we're going to let the kid go home. The night before, he's hanging out, and he happens to mention that the kid happens to mention that he's a black belt in Taekwondo. And Timberlake is like, get the hell out of here, you're joking. He's like, no, I'm serious. So he puts him in a headlock, and he gets out of that and shoves him to the ground. And then he, you know, hits him again and shoves him in the bathtub. And they're like, oh my goodness, this is awesome. But then you think, wait a minute, this kid could have gotten away at any time. He could have fought off all these guys and gotten away. But he didn't because he liked hanging out with them so much. Like I said, the story does not end well for pretty much everyone. but it's a really, really good film. A couple other movies, and Amanda Seyfried, her part in this is prominent, but again, kind of small. But it's the best movie that she's been in as far as I'm concerned. A couple of the movies I want to mention that she has been in is, one is 9 Lives. This is a movie that was directed by Rodrigo Garcia, a director I find really interesting. Basically, it's a series of short stories, each with a different set of characters, but each story is all done in one unbroken camera take, which is really awesome. Those shots are hard to do, really hard to do, and have a whole movie consist of nothing of that, must have been kind of a nightmare to make. Some of the characters who are the main characters in stories show up as incidental characters in other stories, but Amanda Seyfried's only in one of them. And it's not really the best story in the bunch either. What else? Oh yeah, she played the lead in Lovelace, which just came out I think earlier this year, or maybe it was last year, I forget exactly. But it's about the porn star Linda Lovelace, as she was known to anyone who was interested in that kind of thing. And how she basically met this guy when she was very young named Chuck Traynor, who got her work in this movie called Deep Throat that was very, very successful. But after the first part of the movie is over, then you sort of like flash back and you rewatch these scenes and you find out a little bit more about their relationship and find out that he was really abusive to her and very controlling and didn't let her have any freedom and everything like that. And finally she got out of there and married another person and had a son and wrote a book about the experience. So her life turned out okay. She died in a car accident when she was 53, which is very tragic. But she managed to overcome her ordeal. And so, that was a good thing. It's an interesting story, but not that interesting of a movie. The movie itself is kind of dull. There's a lot of recognizable actors in it that pop in and out. People like Chloe Sevigny, and James Franco plays Hugh Hefner, and Wes Bentley shows up as a photographer in one scene. It's got a good cast. Hank Azaria is the director of the movie, and also Mr. Big from Sex and the City. I forget what the actor's actual name is, but he's in it too. Good cast, a lot of good people in it, but ultimately not that interesting of a movie just in terms of the style in which it's done. It's pretty kind of dull and straightforward, which is too bad because the guys who made that movie also made a movie called Howl, in which James Franco played Allen Ginsberg, and I really liked that movie a lot. So I was excited to see the film, especially since Amanda Seyfried was playing, an adult film star. That was kind of nice. But ultimately, not my favorite movie of hers. Again, it's this trend where it's like, if she's one of the main characters or the main character, the movie is not that great, unfortunately. But if she's a supporting character, the movie actually, for the most part, it's pretty good. Anyway, that's the trend I've noticed. That's our week on Amanda Seyfried. Unfortunately, we haven't had that many reviews lately. We've been lucky to have like 2 per week. I hope that will change soon. I hope that now that the World Cup is wrapping up, that guys are going to be interested in doing reviews for the channel. And we got a really interesting theme coming starting tomorrow. So I hope everyone on the channel makes a video because that would be totally awesome. I can't wait for this theme. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Please stop by our Facebook page and contribute ideas for future themes. That would be totally great. Take it easy.